story, because I will try to make it as brief as possible about my story so that I can kind of share with you, I hope, some lessons on what you guys want to do and breaking through some of the barriers. So I come from a very eclectic background. I was born in California. Fortunately, I lost the accent. My parents divorced. I came back to the UK. I grew up in a hostel for homeless families. I lived in a 10-foot by 10-foot room with my mum and my brother for 2 years, sharing a bathroom and a kitchen with 5 other families. And it was so bad that at primary school, it's my last year of primary school, I used to get off the bus and I can't sit down. I struggle sitting down. So I got off the bus a mile before where I lived, and I would walk home so that nobody would see where I lived, because at that point I spent the last year in America probably having McDonald's for dinner every single night of the week because my mum was going through a horrific divorce. So I was probably like 2 stone overweight, and I'm only tiny as it is. I had a stupid American accent, so if I was like 2 stone overweight, stupid American accent, and I lived in a hostel for homeless families, well, I was completely fucked at that point, right? So I thought, well, 2 out of 3 I can manage, but the third one I'm going to try to keep hidden. And to cut a long story short, I had a very challenging time at school for all kinds of reasons. I got expelled from school. And yet I've never smoked, I've never drank alcohol, and I've never touched drugs. So I was just really badly behaved in class and got expelled for doing so. And then sometimes we have those moments in our lives where really all we need is someone to believe in us. And at that point, I was 16. I got expelled from school at 15. I taught my way back into school. At that point, my mum realised I probably needed to do something else. I was at an all-girls grammar school, and it absolutely wasn't right for me. Oh my God, I think you're probably all going to get distracted by that, I think. Yeah, I would, yeah. Yeah. Shah.com, myname.com. It's funny, so I waited for 5 years to buy that domain name, and it cost me like £5,000. And all these guys say to me, oh my God, how much did you spend on your domain name? I'm like, oh my God, every single one of you fuckers would actually go and spend that on a private license plate for your car. Like, at least this is an appreciating asset. So the point I wanted to make about my schooling was about being non-judgmental of other people, and also about what's possible when just one person believes in you. So growing up the way I did, I'll be really honest, I struggled to relate to people who had what I would consider an easy life. So I struggled to relate to people who, bearing in mind, I never went on holiday until I was, I think 16 was the first time I'd ever went on holiday. My nan never went on holiday until she was 60. So I really struggled with what I would consider the type of person who just had it easy. And yet at 16, I won a scholarship to the City of London School for Girls, which is probably one of the hardest schools to get into, and I got in on a full scholarship. And I don't say any of this to impress you, because really, who gives a fuck, right? But the point is this, is that when I went to that school, with all my preconceived ideas and beliefs about posh people and people who had it easy, the headmistress at the time, her name was Lady France, and she was about as posh as you could possibly get. I mean, she was a lady after all. And she sat me there and she said, I just don't really understand what I see in front of me, because when I look at your school reports, your English teacher says that you are the best student that she's ever taught. Your science teacher says he doesn't actually know who you are. He can't remember seeing you in a class in the last 5 years. Your history teacher says you're the rudest pupil that she's ever had, and yet you average 96% in your exams. Really not a normal kind of student. She says, so I think they just haven't been able to understand you. So how about we wipe the slate clean and we start afresh? Are you prepared to do that? And in that moment, this one person who, I have to be honest, when I sat in front of her, I thought, oh, fucking hell, she's never going to understand me. Like, what on earth would she have any idea about what I've been through? And do you know what? To some degree, she had no idea, because she'd never had to go through these. She came from a very long line of very privileged families. But that wasn't the point. That was my judgmental belief about her, when in reality, she showed up for me in a way that I so needed at that point in my life, because all I really needed was one person to believe in me. Fast forward from that to today, what then happened was I went to LSE, I did an economics degree, but whilst I was there, I won a competition to write for Cosmopolitan magazine. My real love has always been writing, but I never thought it was a real career. I thought that was just kind of like something that people did as a hobby. And whilst I was writing for Cosmo magazine, I interviewed the then super middleweight boxing champion, Chris Eubank. And by the end of the interview, he'd offered me a job. So I was going into my final year at university. I was literally breaking up for the summer before my final year, and he offered me a job. And I had no idea what this even meant. And I, of course, just said yes, because that's the wonderful naivety of youth, right? You just say yes. So I said yes, and I got home, and I had a message on my answer machine back in the days when we actually listened to those things. I don't know about you, I think I have 48 messages on my answer machine at home, and I never listened to any of them. So I listened to the message, and he told me I had to be at Gatwick Airport the next morning at 8:30 to take an overnight bag, and I was thinking, oh my God, like, what have I got myself into? Like, I hope he hasn't got the wrong idea. Like, I said yes to a job, I didn't say yes to anything else. So I rock up, and it turns out that I found myself to be responsible for putting on the biggest fight that ever took place in the UK, which was Ben versus Eubank. I was like 21, and I was the only woman in the industry, and everybody thought, you know, I was like a ring card girl, like round 9. No, seriously. See, I think being a woman in business is incredibly powerful because most people underestimate you, and men in particular underestimate you. The challenge I have, especially when we reference what would happen if we had 2 female leaders. Now, when the 2 female leaders are the type who collaborate rather than compete, it's fantastic. But unfortunately, there are also a different type of female in business, which I really doubt we have in this room. There are those that think there's only enough room for one of us here. So because I'm here, I don't want you here, and I don't want you here, and I don't want you here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carve out my little fiefdom and make sure that none of you fuckers get into my space. That's just bullshit. That's like 1980s bullshit way of thinking. It's definitely not how I've progressed. And I think for me, my greatest asset is my support network. It's not my properties, it's not my bank account, it's not my business, it's my support network. Because the truth is, if you were to wake up tomorrow and lose everything, it's your support network who will help you build it back up, whatever that is. You know, whether it's an emotional crisis, a personal business, your support network is, without any question, your greatest asset. So there I was, found myself, I became the only licensed female boxing manager in the world at 21. The BBC did this whole huge documentary with me. I totally and utterly, absolutely loved what I did. And then Chris retired, and I wasn't sure what to do, and I've been so fortunate in my career. I've had a chance meetings after chance meetings after chance meetings with random people. And I met Sir James Dyson. But he wasn't Sir James Dyson back then, he was just James, and he was working around his kitchen table in Bath, and nobody knew who he was. So I then started working with James. I set up my own company, but to be fair, I personally spent 90% of my working week just working with James. Built Dyson up over 5 years to become, you know, the biggest brand in kind of the appliance industry. I went to Australia, I set Dyson up in Australia, went to the US, started the process of setting up in the US, and then I realized that actually I just wanted to do my own thing. And with his support, you'll see my first book was actually called Stop Talking, Start Doing, and James wrote the foreword for me. This is another thing I really believe in, is relationships. You know, I don't believe in networking, I believe in building relationships, and there's a big difference because building relationships are with people that you want to be friends with and want in your life for the long term, not just the short term, what can I get out of this in this moment. And I worked with James for 5 years, and then I set up my first company, which was called My Kind of Place, which was a very, very early social network site aimed at teenage girls. We sold that in 2006 to Be Sky B. I had my son the previous year, took some time out, and then I came up with this idea to build a platform for entrepreneurs, because the truth is, for me, my greatest passion is really simple. There's a ton of things that I'm really bad at. Common sense probably comes top of my list, like I have none. But the 2 things that I'm world class at is business and books. And business, particularly online business. So if you guys want to ask me anything about how you build your online business, your online profile, your online platform, how to build a tribe, how do you sell more online, how do you create digital courses, that's my thing. How do you write a best-selling book, that's my thing. Anything outside of it, that's not my thing. So I get really clear on what I'm good at, and I just try every day to become even better at that. So hopefully I'll become world class at 2 things and don't worry about the rest of it. Because who says we're supposed to be good at everything? We're not supposed to be good at everything. I'd much rather be world class at 1 or 2 things than mediocre at everything. So I set up a company called Smarta, SMARTA.com, and it became the largest website in the UK for entrepreneurs and small businesses. But it came at a price, and the price was this. It was that apart from when I worked with Eubank and Dyson, which was a different point in my career. It was the very start of my career, and I was unencumbered with responsibilities. What happened, and I wonder if this has happened to any of you, was that in the process of getting older and having more responsibilities, some of my limiting beliefs came into play. And one of my limiting beliefs, based on my background, was that in order to be successful, I had to do things a certain way. And to me, what that meant was that I had to have investors, and I had to have a certain number of staff, and I had to have a big office, and I had to have a board of directors, and I had to have a high-profile chairman, because these were all my tick boxes. That growing up in a hostel for homeless families in a council estate, that when I went to City, all the girls, when I looked at their parents, that's what they were doing. They ticked these boxes. So I grew up thinking that if I'm going to be successful, or if I'm going to be serious, if I'm going to be considered and validated, then this is what I need to do. So that's what I did. I took on investors, I took on a board of directors, I set this company up, and then lo and behold, I realized that we had this power struggle, that I wanted to run the business a certain way, and they wanted to run it a different way. And because of other things that happened in my life where I just kind of gave in, and I said, all right, you want to run it that way, I'll run it the way you want to run it. And then one day, in fact, it's funny that this is a slide up here, because if there's anything I can share with you that I want you to take away, it's what I'm about to share with you next, because I think it's the single most important thing. I only tell you the background to give you context, because oftentimes, I know, because I'm guilty of it too, that when we hear someone speak, we make all kinds of assumptions about, we don't even do it consciously, our subconscious, oh, I want to write a book, but it must be easy for her because, and we tell ourselves all these stories about why it's easier for somebody else to do something than it is for us. I do it, right? I know I do it too. I don't do it consciously, and I have to catch myself from doing it. So I try, wherever I can, to share the reality so that you guys can see, you know, I'm not Superwoman, Lisa's not Superwoman. Together we might be, because when you join forces with people who've got your back constantly, you're suddenly far more powerful than you are by yourself. But the reality is I have plenty of flaws and I have plenty of fuck-ups in my life, just like all of us do. But the lesson I want to share with you is this, is I woke up one day and I realized that I was living somebody else's life. What I was doing what I thought was expected of me. I was doing what other people wanted me to do. My son gave me a really good lesson when he was 6 years old. He's 10 now. And I was called into his school, and his sports teacher said, you know, Jet is phenomenally gifted at sport, but he doesn't seem to want to do after-school sports clubs. Why is that? I said, I don't know. I said, because he enjoys it at school. I said, I'll talk to him. So I sat him down and I said to him, Jet, you know, your teachers say you're really, really good at sport. Why don't you want to do the after-school sports clubs? And he just looked at me and he said, really simply, like kids do, Mummy, just because you're good at something doesn't mean you want to do it. Okay. Yes. Yes. I learned a lesson from a 6-year-old, and he was so true. Just because I was good at running a business, the way that I was, did not mean that I wanted to do it. So I woke up and I had this real realization that I was living somebody else's life. I was doing what I thought I should do, and I was doing what other people wanted me to do. And I was on holiday in Portugal with one of my other friends, Michelle, and this cover came through on the email, and I had to sign it off. And I looked at it and I got so excited because this was exactly what I wanted my cover to look like. And I was so precious about it. Like in my contract with Penguin, I was like, I have to have control over my cover. And I said, I swear to you, I'm not a diva, but I just have to have control over my cover because I'm really commercial, right? I know what sells books. The reality is, it's not the content inside. That's what makes you recommend it to other people. But what sells it in the first place is your title and your book cover. If anybody ever tells you differently, they're talking absolute shit. Because nobody knows what's inside until they've bought your book, unless somebody's recommended it to them. So you just saw it, right? We just saw it. I mean, we've sold over 100,000 copies of our book as a first-time author, which for the UK is like phenomenal. My first book, Stop Talking, Start Doing, was #1 for 14 months in a row. We beat every single record. We beat Richard Branson. We beat everybody. And yet, there was only like 25,000 words in the book. But it was the title, Stop Talking, Start Doing, a kick in the pants in 6 parts. And the design, it just jumped off the shelf. Were there other people who wrote better books than me that year? Oh, without a doubt. There were probably hundreds, if not thousands of people who wrote better books than me. Did anyone have a better title? Hell no. Did anybody have a better book cover? Absolutely not. So if any of you are interested in writing books, just take that into consideration. It's really important, especially in image-driven social media time. Every single day it warms my heart. Somebody on Instagram, somebody on Twitter, somebody on Facebook is sharing, they're on a beach, they're on a train, they're on a plane with my book. So you've got to think about these things. Slight tangent, but I want to go back to this point. This is the most important point I can share with you. This cover came through. I get so excited. My friend looks at me and she says to me, oh my God, you're so excited. You must just like love writing books. I said, oh, do you know what, me? She said, it's not just the books. I love the whole content. I love creating content that makes an impact on other people. I love running workshops. I love teaching people. I said, that's what I really love doing. I said, the book is just a mechanism for me to do it. So she looks at me. It's one of those moments. You know, have you ever had, I don't know if anybody, I've never smoked, but my mum used to smoke, and she said there was just this moment that just shifted everything. The moment when you stop doing something, start doing something else. And this was the moment. She looked at me and she said, why have you never done that full time? And before I could think about it, the words came tumbling out of my mouth. And what I said was because creatives can't make real money. So I'd grown up very poor, so for me, financial stability is really important. And so I had this limiting belief that creative people couldn't make real money. And then I stopped and I thought to myself, and I said to her, where the fuck did that come from? Like, I didn't even know it was in my head. And then I said, well, what if J.K. Rowling was my mum or Steven Spielberg was my dad? Would I think that creative people can't make real money? Of course not. But that was my reality because this was my framework. So this was the framework that I operated in. The one thing I am absolutely totally world-class at is taking action. In the space of 15 minutes from that conversation in Portugal by a pool, I opened up my laptop and I did this. I sent an email to my chairman and I resigned from my own company. I did, immediately. I also sat on the board of a FTSE 100 company, and I sent an email to the chairman and I resigned from that board too. I was the only woman on the board and I took the responsibility seriously, but I didn't want to do that either. Again, I was doing this because I felt I had an obligation, there was no women on the board, I should do it, but I didn't really want to do it, so why was I doing it? In the space of 15 minutes, not only did I resign from my own company, all the board positions that I sat on, but I also cut every single source of income that I had at that moment in time. It's pretty brave. And, you know, I had two beautiful houses, one in Greenwich, one in Whitstable by the beach, but I didn't have like £1 million in the bank account, so I wasn't in a position by any stretch of the imagination to cut off all my income the way I did. But I know myself, and sometimes we're taught that don't burn your bridges, don't burn your bridges. I think that's absolute bollocks, because when you burn your bridges, you've got nowhere else to go but forward. You can't go back because there is no back. Now, I know that we all operate differently, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend that path for everyone, but for me, that was absolutely the right thing to do. I cut off everything. And to be fair, I had like a 3-month handover with my board position and a 4.5-month handover, almost 5-month handover with my own company. But come January 2015, I was starting from scratch. And here's what happened, because I want this to be what you take away. First of all, what I want you to take away from this is don't ever live your life by other people's limitations. Live your life for you. Absolutely crucial. And think really deeply about what you're doing. Are you doing what you're doing right now because you think it's what you should do, or are you doing it because you love doing it? If it's not the second, go back, rethink. Secondly, you can make money from anything. Like, I promise you, any of you could tell me what you do, and I can tell you how you can make an extra 50 grand this year. Like, I swear I can do it. I don't care what you do. I don't care if you train cats. I don't care if you're a nutritionist. I don't care what you do. I can tell you how you make an extra 50 grand in a nanosecond. It's not complicated. Making money is not complicated. The thing is most of us don't know how, right? We don't know how, and one of the reasons we don't know how is we have to have this massive paradigm shift to understand where the world currently operates. And so much holds us back. And so what I did is I just cut all of my ties in one go. So in January 2015, I decided that for the first time, since I probably worked with Dyson, I was actually going to do what I really, really wanted to do. And it was really simple. I was simply going to be authentically me. That was it. What did that mean? It meant I was going to wear what I wanted to wear. that I was going to do the work that I wanted to do. I was going to listen to the music that I wanted to listen to. And if I was going to run events, you guys would all have to listen to the music that I wanted to as well, because I wasn't going to turn myself inside out for anybody else. And I thought about all the things that I'd really, really wanted to do in my life. Okay, so just to show you how deep-rooted our limiting beliefs can be, because oftentimes people hear me talk and they think, oh God, I wish I had your confidence. I've got a ton of confidence, but that didn't stop my limiting beliefs from holding me back. I actually didn't think I had any. Like seriously, I'd conned myself so badly that until that point where I saw that book cover, my friend said, why haven't you done this full time then? I actually didn't think I had any limiting beliefs. But here I had this massive limiting belief that stopped me from pursuing a career that not only did I really want to do, but I'm really fucking good at. So I did something that I was okay at, but I didn't really love it. And everybody told me, oh, you can't make money doing that. I told people what I wanted to do. Lisa obviously didn't say that. Lots of people told me, you're...
She enjoys it.
Yeah, I'm like a diamond. Like, put me under pressure and I come out shining. And I just thought, do you know what? I've just got to be me. I just want to show up as me. So we had sold 100,000 copies of my first book, Stop Talking, Start Doing. 100,000 copies. 100,000 copies. I'm not saying this number repeatedly to impress you, but I want you to listen to this lesson. Imagine we had sold 100,000 copies, and yet I still thought that wasn't a proper career. What the fuck is that about? Like, I've sold 100,000 copies of my book, and yet I'm sitting there thinking, oh, I can't do that for a full-time career. That's not a proper career. That's not a proper career. You've got to do something serious. And then I woke up and thought, do you know what a proper career is? A proper career is doing what I want to do. And I will figure out a way to make money from it. So January 2015, I set up Shah.com, and I decided that what I wanted to do is I wanted to write more books, I wanted to take the content, I wanted to run workshops, I wanted to create online courses, I wanted to run business boot camps. So let me just, in a nutshell, tell you what happened in the space of our first 12 months. Headline figure, first 12 months from scratch, we cleared over £1 million in revenue with 2 full-time employees and 1 part-time employee. That meant we had a far greater profit margin than I'd had in my previous business with 30 employees. I worked from home, didn't have an office, and I did the work that I loved. Now, am I going to say that it's easy and there's a magic pill? No, of course it's not. But you have to have a plan. If you have a plan and you know what you're doing, so much more is possible. So my plan was really simple. I knew what I love to do. I love connecting with people. I love supporting businesses. That's my absolute passion. I've recognised I've been really lucky in my career to have met some incredible people, had some amazing connections, and I wanted to share that with as many people as possible. So I started January 2015. We ran our first business boot camp. We had 300 people attend, our first event ever. By the way, does anybody here have an email list? Does anybody know what that is, an email list? Okay, you should all have an email list, right? If I had more time, I'd explain, like from a business point, why that's so important. I had 0 people on my email list. So we got 300 people there through social media, no Facebook ads, just posts. We got 300 people at the first one. From that first event, I sold a 2-day workshop called How to Make Money Online. So in simultation, I was creating online courses and I was running boot camps. And when I was running boot camps, I was selling workshops to teach other people how to create online courses. We sold the workshops. Our 2-day workshops are 1,500 quid for 2 days. And we would, at every single boot camp, we would sell 40 places easily. And at the same time, I'd figured out another way to actually share my courses, not just from selling them directly, but I found this little trick that nobody else kind of seemed to have figured out, which is I started selling my courses on Groupon, right? Now, Groupon seems like you think, oh my God, that's like buy one, get one free teeth whitening. But Groupon is actually the world's leading distributor of online courses, right? So I'm sharing all of this with you because you have to think differently to create different results. So other people were looking at Groupon and thinking, well, it's just for that. I'm looking at Groupon thinking, if I sell my course on Groupon, not only are they my salesperson, they sell it for me, but if I create a shorter product, not my big product, but a small product, and it's digital, so I've got huge margins, I've got big profit margins to work from. The one thing that most people don't understand is that when Groupon sells your digital product for you, you get the customer's data. So what then happened is we sold over 10,000 courses at 30 quid. So we made easily 150 grand just from Groupon. But we got 10,000 email addresses of potential customers who bought a course called How to Start a Business in 30 Days. So of course, we had a high percentage of those people coming to our boot camps. The irony of all of this is that I told my board, exactly this, and every single one of them looked at me and told me it was a vanity project. That's your ego talking. Interestingly, every single one of those was a man. And every one of those felt intimidated by the fact that I was prepared to walk away from my own business, and I didn't need their money, and I didn't need their investment, and I didn't need their approval. Because actually, that's fine. You don't want to do this. I'm going to go do it by myself. And now, who's laughing now? You know, and here's another funny thing. 2 days after I sent that email, resigning from my own board, cutting off all of my income, I came home, and there was a letter on the side. And I could see HM on it. I was thinking, oh God, another tax bill, HMRC, oh God, I can't really be bothered to open that now. So I went and made myself a coffee, came back, thought, right, I better open it. I just ripped it open, I didn't really look at it. I ripped it open, I pulled it out, and I thought, this doesn't really look like a letter from the HMRC. So I started looking at it, I started reading, I was thinking, oh my God. It wasn't HMRC at all, it was actually from the Queen. And I found out that I'd been awarded MBE for my services to business and entrepreneurship. And specifically, what they quoted was as leading as an example to other people. And I thought to myself, what fantastic timing. 2 days ago, I resigned from something I didn't want to do anymore. And I finally had that belief to step into my own power and do what I really wanted to do. And the universe seemed to conspire with me to help that path become easier. And for me, the greatest moment was when I went to Buckingham Palace to receive the award. It wasn't the award at all. The greatest moment was the fact that I got to take 3 people with me. I took my son, who was 9 at the time. I took my mum, but I also took my nan, who was 90. She's 91 this year. She was 90 at the time. And for her generation, she's lived in a council house her whole entire life. For her generation, meeting the Queen was as likely as like E.T. coming home, right? It was never, ever going to happen. And that's, for me, what life is all about. It's about how can I create as many magical memories with the people that I love, that I care about, because I don't really give a shit about diamonds and jewelry and cars and any of that stuff. What I do care about is that the more money I can make, the more experiences I can share with the people that I love. And that, to me, is everything. It's also what I do in my work. So, you know, today, you can see we've got a new cover for the books. We're on the 2nd edition of the book because the first lot sold out. So we've got a new cover. I'm doing the work that I love, and I'm getting paid fantastically well for doing it. And for me, it's all about how much support can I give back. Who's the lady who I met in the toilet? I thought, you. So, and then I think you said to me, oh my God, and you're doing something at 12:30, didn't you? So one of the things I decided to do is I recognised that not everybody can afford to come on a 1,500 quid workshop, right? But everybody, by the way, we sell tickets to our business boot camps at 29 quid. And the reason we do this, again, trying to help you think commercially, when we sold our courses on Groupon, the price was 29 quid. So what we then started to do is email all the people who bought our courses on Groupon, and we said to them, would you like to come and experience this live? Oh, and we'll do it at the same price, because psychologically they got accustomed to paying £29 for a product from us, so they were super happy to pay £29 to come to a live event. But I realised that actually there was a bit of my business model that was missing, and the bit that was missing was, first of all, what happened in between. Like if people came on a course, whether they came to a boot camp or they came to a 2-day workshop, how did I support them afterwards? And also, what about the people who couldn't afford to come on those 2-day workshops just yet? Maybe it was going to take them 6 months to build their business up in the process. So last month, we launched a new membership club, and it's called, very originally, it's called The Club. And inside the club, every Thursday, today, between 12:30 and 1:30, I go in live and I answer everybody's questions. Every single person who asks me a question, if I can't do it between 12:30 and 1:30, I literally stay on that night and I respond to everybody personally and directly. So people get access to me live throughout the week. I drop in every day, but on a Thursday between 12:30 and 1:30, I'm there live answering everybody's questions. And then I thought to myself, well, what else do I have access to that I could share? Because to me, it's all about collaboration. I'm very lucky to have worked with some incredible people. So each month we bring in world-class experts who teach. So they teach you how to create online courses, they teach you how to create membership sites, they teach you how to make the most of Facebook Live and social media, they teach you how to use a camera, how to use the phone in your camera, how to do lighting, all the practical things, how to build your email list, what are the tech tools that you need to be able to make money online. And all we do is charge people £1 a day, and everybody can drop out at any point in time. Do you know what? It's been the single most rewarding thing that I have done, because in a month, we've had, I think, 334 people sign up without any advertising, all through recommendations of other people inside the club. And I think that wherever you can your business, you've got to be open-minded, because when I started, that wasn't even on my radar, but I kept looking at thinking, okay, well, where are people dropping out? Where am I not helping? Where am I not serving people? Why is that happening? And for some people, it's different reasons. And actually, you'll find that when you want to build your business, I absolutely recommend every single one of you starts to think about how you can transition more of what you're doing into a digital space. The key reason, especially as mothers who are trying to juggle everything, you are not scalable. I am not scalable. You only have 24 hours in a day. You need to sleep for some of those, you need to eat for some of those, you need to spend time with your kids. So if you're constantly trading your time one-to-one, which is what I used to do in a regular kind of job, even though it was my company, it was still a job, I was trapped in that kind of environment. But when you start to take what you already know and what you do in your day-to-day work and you transition that into a digital environment, suddenly you can scale what you do. You can reach so many more people. And I'm not saying it's a magic pill. You have to do the work. You have to create the information and in order to be able to serve people and help people. But once you've done it, the hard work is done. And so I think that from a business perspective, the greatest lesson I can kind of give you and leave with you is to say, go away and have a think. Look at what you're currently doing. If you're not making any revenue whatsoever in a digital environment right now, think about how you can do it. I promise you, and you can all test me, there's not a single person in here, no matter what you do, that I couldn't help you and tell you right now, right, you should think about doing this online, and that's where you'd make the revenue. And for me, my goal is within the next 12 months, that 80% of all of our revenue will come from a digital environment. Because actually I want to take 17 weeks holiday a year. I've just booked 5 weeks in Florida. I could never have done that before. My board would have had a heart attack and said, what on earth do you think you're doing taking 5 weeks holiday? Well, I'm taking 5 weeks holiday. That's what I'm doing, right? Does it mean that I'm not going to work? Oh my God, us two, we go on holiday all the time together. We're up at 5 o'clock in the morning working, but we make it work around us. So we will work from like 5 till 7, 8 o'clock when the kids get up. Then we'll have breakfast, then we'll go out to the beach, then we'll come back, and in the evening we'll do a couple of hours more work. But we don't realise it doesn't feel like work, because first of all, we're doing what we love. Secondly, we're together, so the camaraderie makes it so much easier. And thirdly, we both get up early anyway, so what else are we going to do between 5 and 8 in the morning? Right? We might as well get the work done that's paying for us to be in these beautiful locations. I'm not saying anything comes easy, but there are far easier ways to make money than people think there are. And I'm just so over this notion that as women, we have choices to either pursue a career that we love, and it's typically been kind of derided as a lifestyle business. What fucking bullshit that is. And I hate it when we're defined typically by men. And I'll be honest, in my career, I've had so many men support me. So I am very pro men, but I have to be honest, it's usually the men who call us things like lipstick entrepreneur. Somebody did that to me once. Right? Well, what is that? I mean, I just don't understand it. I don't put a label on myself. Why are you putting a label on me? But the reality is we're trying to juggle everything. And I think trying to find ways to make your life and your business easier so that you have more free time has got to be a priority. And it's not that we necessarily want to make cupcakes around a kitchen table, although if you do and that's what you want to do, I'm all for that. What I'm not all for is people deriding us for wanting to work from home, thinking that we have no ambition because we want to work from home. Why do I want an office? I mean, I don't get it. I've made more money in the last 18 months than I've made in any other business, and I haven't had an office. The world has changed. Okay, Barack Obama and Mark Zuckerberg did a video last week and they talked about online education. And it was interesting because they talked about online courses and they said in the future we will not be going to universities. We won't have the time, we won't be able to have the expense. When we want to learn something, when we want help, if we've got a back pain, yes, we might want to go and see the chiropractor, but actually we might want to go online right now to find 5 tips that we can do before we go to bed that's going to ease the pain. The way that we communicate has changed, the way that we learn has changed, the way that we do business has changed. Geez, we're out of Europe now. Well, we might be, who knows, right? That's a whole nother debate. One thing it made me think, I've got to look outside of this country. I need to look outside of Europe. So how am I going to reach clients in Australia, in Canada? Not that their currencies are that great right now, but how am I going to reach them in the US? Because actually the US, the dollar rate is fantastic. Well, that's a whole different conversation. So the point is we've got to change the way we think about what's possible. And I think the reality is absolutely everything is possible if you have the right support around you. And for me, the reason why I'm here today is not just because Lisa asked me to do it, and I'd do anything she asked me to do anyway, but I am conscious that the way that we improve this world is through collaboration and not competition. The way we improve this world, our little world and the bigger universe, is by building support networks around us. And you guys are lucky to be in this environment. If you don't know the people who are in here, this is your opportunity to reach out and make those connections. Because one thing I know for sure, running your own business can be a lonely experience, right? I did every Wednesday on Facebook, on my business page, I do what I call Wednesday wake-up call, 6 a.m. in the morning, no makeup, hair tied back with all of my running kit on. I do a 20-minute Facebook Live. And this week I talked about what do you do if the people around you don't understand what you're doing or they don't support what you're doing. And that's true for lots of us, right? Because just because you've chosen this path or you've chosen this path doesn't necessarily mean that your husband, your partner, your kids, your parents, or even your friends have chosen that path. The most important thing you can do is to surround yourself with like-minded people who are sharing the journey with you. And without any doubt, I know that the people in this room right now, whatever challenge you're struggling with, somebody else here has already been through that challenge. You just don't know it. So we're sat here thinking, oh my God, I might lose that client. What am I going to do? Well, this person over there, she lost her biggest client 12 months ago and she came back from it. So if you can communicate, she might give you some ideas on how you can do that. But the only way you know these things is you have to drop the facade. You have to drop the facade that you're perfect. You have to drop the facade that you can cope with everything. You can't. You're not supposed to. Neither are you supposed to be brilliant at everything. The worst business advice I'd ever heard was a very famous woman who ran a very famous advertising agency telling a very good friend of mine that his best chance of success was to focus on fixing, that was the word she used, fixing his weaknesses until he was 40, and then after that he might be successful. You can probably tell I struggle with keeping my mouth shut, and I wasn't employed by her, and I was sitting there when she gave the information. I just turned around and said, Ollie, that is the worst piece of advice I've ever heard. That is a recipe for depression, disaster, years and years of unhappiness. A far better solution is focus on your strengths and become world class at them and build a team around you who have different strengths to you. And that's what opportunities like today are. So, I'm really grateful for being here. I hope there's some way that I can help and serve you. One of the things that I said to Jenny that I would do, if anybody wants to come and join the club, you're welcome to do so for just £1, like £1 for your first month. And if you don't think it's tons of value after that, you can just drop out. There's no questions asked. So if you want to join, just go to shah.com/the club, that's it. And you can even come and ask me questions live in about an hour and 20 minutes. I'll be live in there. But I'm happy to do another kind of 5-10 minutes. If you've got any questions you want to ask me, tell me about your business. If you've got any challenge right now, I love being on the spot. So if you heard me say something, where you thought, oh yeah, right, I bet she can't tell me how to make more money, throw me, let's see what you've got. Go.